Welcome to Lifestyles of the Not Jet Set. For today's episode of this travel and tourism show, I'm interviewing Keziah Wilde, an educator who does community and youth programming for a theater in Middlebury, Vermont. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm here to talk about Keziah's low-carbon travels through Mexico and Central America. So tell us a little about what your route was.
Yeah, so I went on this trip in fall of 2024. I left in mid-September. I started from Boston, Massachusetts, and I took the Amtrak. I took the route to Texas where you go through Chicago and then south from Chicago down to Austin, Texas. And then I took a bus to the border of Mexico at a border town called Laredo, Texas. Once I was in Mexico, it was all bus travel, and I took the bus to Monterrey, Mexico. And then I went pretty much directly to Mexico City. And then I had a wonderful couple of weeks in Mexico City. I took Spanish lessons by day. I took a nice week-long Spanish class. It's well set up for travelers where you can just drop in for a week at a time of Spanish lessons. And then after maybe 12 or so days, I continued on out eastward to basically directly above Belize. I got very lucky, and the town that I was staying in called Quintana Roo was having something like its 50th anniversary festival. And so the night that I was there, there was a music festival in town. And then from there, I took the bus southward into Belize. I took a boat out to one of the keys. There's a number of islands off of Belize City, and I went to one called Key Cocker, which is a pretty famous for youth travel. There's a lot of young people on Key Cocker. It's very touristy. That was maybe sort of the most touristy part of this travel. Down to pretty deep rural southern Belize, where I spent just about 2 weeks doing a workaway, which is along the lines of woofing or any of these other programs where you can sign up to live with a family and sometimes do farm work or sometimes do other types of work in exchange for free housing. And so I was there living with a family and taking care of their kids. And so I took a boat from Punta Gorda, Belize, over to Guatemala. And that was just in time for the Day of the Dead. And so I spent the Day of the Dead in Sumpango, Guatemala, before heading to Antigua, which is another place where I spent a long time. I spent, I think, 9 or 10 days in Antigua, Guatemala, and took another Spanish school there. And then I had a weekend of hiking one of the great volcanoes of Guatemala. I hiked the volcano Acatenango on my last weekend there before heading westward towards Lake Atitlan, where I spent a night in a town called Panajachel, right on the coast of Atitlan. And then I continued on back to Mexico. I spent a couple nights in Oaxaca and then back to Mexico City, and then back up north to the States and came back by Amtrak.
How very exciting. And who were some of the most interesting characters you met on the way?
Yeah, one guy who is extremely memorable was in Belize on my first night in Belize City. I met a guy who I didn't realize at first how well known he was. His name was Na Anveshana.
From Belize City and so hostel పరిచయం అమ్మాయిలు వర్షన
Keziah. And I'm from the United States.
America and you
I'm Helena and I'm from Germany.
జర్మనీ అంటే యూరోపియన్ అమ్మాయి అమెరికన్ అమ్మాయి అన్నమాట సో తిరుగుతాం పరిచయం అయిన తర్వాత లెట్స్ గో ఎంజాయ్
Have a nice day. It became clearer and clearer that he was a YouTuber, which we knew, but it became clear that he was an incredibly successful travel YouTuber who spent his entire life traveling across the globe.
Of course, not everybody likes the idea of overland travel. Traditionally, it's considered easier to just fly by airplane. Did you ever find this sort of too burdensome or even dangerous?
Not for me. The benefits that came from this land travel made this adventure just a lot more exciting and a lot more interesting and a lot more special. For one thing, I loved seeing just the distance of land that was covered, especially in Mexico, where it was really cool to see the varying landscapes across the entire country. And then in terms of meeting people and talking to people in each place, created a way better sense of who lives here and sort of what the layout of these places are and what different towns in different regions are like. And so no, I did not feel burdened or held up by the challenges.
Well, if you were pressed and suppose your parents weren't going to be hearing this show at all, was there anything that you sort of regretted or learned from?
Oh, well, yes, there were days of travel that did end up trickier than anticipated. Especially these border crossing points were sometimes challenging by land. I think some border crossing towns are safer and more trafficked than others, but it wasn't always worth going hours out of the way to get to a different town that wasn't necessarily on my route. Just the logistics of getting out of the van and then walking across the border was tricky. It's just a site where a lot of people, there's a lot of scams to be run at the border. And so immediately I'd been warned about this one, which was good, which is that there are people outside of the immigration building who are dressed as if they are immigration officials and who are requesting certain payments to cross the border, who are not immigration officials. And so you have to be very, very careful to make it to the actual building and talk to somebody through the window, and double check that they actually need your money.
Well, thank you, Kazai Wilde, for being on this show and taking time to speak to us today.
Thanks, Dad. Thanks for having me.